First of all, I just wanted to know what attracted you to composition.
Well, it all started when I was 5 years old, a few months after I began piano lessons. And I would like play my pieces in all sorts of different keys with different articulations. And sometimes I'd even play one hand in one key and the different hand in another key. And so eventually it occurred to me that it would be really awesome if I could compose my own pieces and do those sort of things with my own ideas. And so then I started to compose my first piece, which was ended up being called Snowman, Snowman, Don't You Melt. And my next piece was actually the first in a long line of pieces that was about insects. And this does include the flute piece that I wrote. So, and that was entitled A Cicada Named Fada.
So, I wanted to talk a little bit about your piece, Trying to Catch a Cloudless Sulfur, and was very interested in reading your program notes, but also reading a bit more about you and your interest in insects. I mean, I think this is a very unusual combination of entomology and music. And in this case, lepidopter as a lepidopterist, I guess, amateur and music. So, yeah, tell me a little bit about your piece.
All right. Yeah. So I, of course, received the invitation to compose it from the Curtis Summerfest program. And I knew that I probably wanted this piece to be about an insect. So when I learned that I was going to compose for the flute, I chose the butterfly as the main insect because, like the flute, the flute does have a delicate sound quality, and butterflies are delicate insects. And flutes and butterflies, both alike, are very agile. And so that is why I chose the butterfly. And so I knew I wanted my piece to be about a butterfly. So I decided to go back to my memories of when I was 5 years old. I would go across the street to the park we nicknamed Dandelion Park because in spring it would be bursting with dandelions. And during the spring and summer there, I would bring my butterfly net and I would try and see how many butterflies I could catch. And the butterflies there were almost always cloudless sulfurs. And I remember that I used almost every time I caught 1 to 5 or 6 butterflies, but I remember that there was this one particular time where I could not catch a butterfly, and I was pretty upset about it after. But
Well, that's a charming background to the piece and quite unusual because we as flutists are often called upon to represent birds, whether it's Vivaldi, Saint-Saëns, Prokofiev, Messiaen, occasionally a butterfly, but it's certainly a beautiful thing. I happen to love butterflies. And so this particular piece has a lot of virtuosity, especially in the opening section, which recurs. Does that evoke the flight and quickness, the agility you mentioned of the butterfly? And then what does the slower, the middle section represent, if anything specific?
that's a very good question. So when I heard that I was going to be writing for a virtuoso flutist, I knew that I could make it almost as hard as I wanted it to. So I knew that basically I could have lots of scales and trills and other fast ornaments. And so yes, you are right in that the opening section does represent like the flight of the butterfly and where I'm chasing after it and I'm trying to catch it. And slower middle section that represents when maybe the butterfly it flies down to maybe sit on a dandelion and sip some nectar. And yeah, and then the opening section does recur, and that represents when the butterfly flies up, and then there's basically like a coda in which the butterfly flies away, never to be seen.
That is really a delightful just set of images, and thank you for those comments, Winston. Yes, you did write a really challenging piece, and with some of those passages and passage work, but I love a challenge, so it's definitely fun to play.